Hi, Tomer and Omry from Viola. I'm
Hey,
very happy that you are taking part of the FinTech Week. And me personally, of course, I know Viola. But before we start, maybe you should introduce yourself so people will get to know your different roles within the big company.
sure. Happy to be here. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having us. So both Tomer and I were part of the Viola Group. We are the largest tech-focused investment firm in Israel, managing more than $3 billion. And we touched over the last 20 years in more than 200 companies that we invested either in equity or in credit. We represent two different funds here out of the four that operate independently within the Viola Group. So I'm a partner at Viola Ventures. We are the early stage side of the Viola Group in terms of investments. We do checks anywhere from $500,000 to 10 million in rounds like seed, A, and B rounds. And some of our portfolio companies in FinTech and others include Payoneer, of course, in FinTech, Iron Source, Outbrain, Redis Labs, Lightrix, Pagaya, and about 35 other portfolio companies. My role within Viola Ventures is to cover the FinTech space and the B2B space. And again, super excited to be here.
Amazing.
Hi, my name is Michaeli. I'm a general partner at Viola Fintech, which is one of the four main funds in the Viola Group. Basically, the story of Viola Fintech is that the group has been doing fintech for about 20 years, investing both in the equity and on the debt side. And about 3 years ago, we decided to start a dedicated fintech fund, which is a vertical fund, a little bit different from the other funds here at the group. We're a global co-investment fund, which means that we invest also in other geographies other than Israel, Europe, APAC, and the Americas, of course, and so on. $120 million fund that is backed by almost exclusively by financial institutions, global financial institutions like Scotiabank, BNP Paribas, etc. So very deep insights into the fintech ecosystem, both on the startups as well as on the financial institution side.
Wow. So you have a global overview of the fintech industry. So probably you come across a lot of very, very smart companies. You mentioned some of them, they're huge. What are the trends? What are the topics that you're seeing that are very hot right now and becoming more and more relevant?
Yeah, so as Tomer mentioned, we are obviously very excited about fintech. You know, this platform, the Viola platform, has been doing fintech for more than 20 years. We have north of 20 companies in the portfolio, in the broader portfolio, that is touching fintech, and it's something that we monitor very closely. I would say that kind of the overarching theme is that fintech continues to evolve with time, right? What we're going to say today may look like history in 5 years, and what we would have said 5 years ago would probably be very historical today. So we thought maybe to open with a little bit of an overview of what we call the fintech revolution and how it started, and we kind of split the timeline into 4 years increments. So I'll walk through them, and then we can do a double click on some of the more interesting themes we see today, as you asked me. So the fintech revolution, basically the way we think about it, started really after the financial crisis of 2008, right? The financial industry got a pretty big dent in terms of its reputation, financial institutions, incumbents, etc. And then we started seeing a huge wave of fintech innovation that Israel took actually a big part of. So if you kind of go back to the pre-2010 era, we started seeing the first wave of payment solutions like a Payoneer. We saw a wave of remittance solutions, kind of transferring money, which is very relevant for the UAE, for example, in terms of opening corridors to transfer money between one country and another. If you fast forward to 2010 to 2014, we sort of saw nail lenders coming in, Fundbox, Bluevine, all of course Israeli companies. We saw the initial wealth management, Betterment, Wealthfront, etc., kind of democratizing wealth management after those banks received this big dent. And we started seeing kind of fintech opening with its APIs, right? If you think about Open Legacy and others. Fast forward 2014 to 2018, we saw the insurtech revolution, right? That Israel was a huge part of. So if you think about Hippo, Lemonade, Next Insurance, each serving a different segments, renters insurance, homeowners, SMBs, etc. But they all were formed in 2015, right? That's the beauty of this cluster coming in. Then we saw the beginning of neobanks, Monzo, Chime, N26, the challenger banks that really kind of took over deposits, savings accounts, etc. Neo traders coming in. We have eToro in Israel, Robinhood, and of course others that kind of democratizing the ability of millennials and others to trade stock in a very seamless, cost-efficient way. And even the kind of the peer-to-peer payments, the Venmos of the world, the wallets in the world, Kulu in the blockchain, etc., that happened in those 4 years. Then you fast forward to where we are today, 2018 kind of to 2022. We see a few things around banking as a service, right? Kind of enabling non-financial institutions to offer banking services, and we'll talk about it when we double click on it. We see a lot in the embedded fintech. Basically, fintech is taking over the world. You choose large industries, big verticals that are being disrupted by financial services. We see open banking starting in Europe, but going all over the world as well. B2B payments, companies like Melio and others that are disrupting that type of service. And of course, wealth management 2.0, right? Companies in our portfolio like Pagaya that are leveraging technology to make it a better investment proposition and managing billions of dollars for their clients. Where are we headed from here? It's everyone's guess. We have a few things that we are monitoring, such as is digital money going to take over the world, right? In 5 years from now, money will be really digital. More democratization of financial services, like underserved segments like SMBs, the developing world that will get more and more financial services, liquidity platforms that would enable everybody to trade illiquid assets. Think even about private equity, VC, real estate, things that are not really tradable these days in a very equitable manner, and we expect will happen. InsurTech 2.0, disruption of reinsurance. So, bottom line is we expect fintech to continue and be exciting and continue to be revolutionized over the years.
Amazing. Tomer, take it from there.
Yeah, so I want to take it from where Omry stopped and do maybe a little bit of a double click on some of the areas that we're most excited about going forward. I think that's probably one of the most exciting trends for us in banking as a service. Basically, the notion that through more friendly regulatory environment, open banking, GDPR, PSD2, etc. On the one hand, open payment systems, and on the other hand, technology that is mature enough, cloud, mobile, and on all that is really enabling, much better way to offer financial services. And all of that in riding on these two waves, the regulatory and technology, basically we see more and more companies being able to offer financial services to their customers. This has been, a holy grail for many companies for many years. They had, especially companies that are touching, millions of consumers or SMEs. They always want to sell more. They always want to engage in a deeper relationship with their audience. And they couldn't offer financial services up until quite recently because, it was way too complicated from regulatory and technological perspectives. And now banking as a service basically opens these floodgates, and we see companies like, Uber is offering, bank accounts, and Amazon is offering loans. And, this is, we begin just, sort of like the harbingers of a much wider phenomena that we'll see. And we're very excited about that. Also, Omry mentioned InsurTech, and of course, we've seen, very, very successful, what we call InsurTech 1.0s, having, huge success, Lemonade going public, Hippo just announced a huge round, etc. But we believe this is only sort of like the first step. We're actually much more excited about, anything that has to do with data. We believe that, data, is driving another revolution in insurtech. One example would be the fact that new data sources are actually driving new business models and new and new products in insurance. If you kind of think about it, what is insurance is basically a way to quantify data and price it correctly. If you're doing it right, you're making a lot of money. If not, you're going out of business. And today there are more and more data sources that enable you to quantify uncertainties and areas that you couldn't quantify before. It could be anything from the risk of the cargo not making it in time to the port, to the risk of a crop yield, to the risk of a cloud service going down. And we're excited, and we're seeing very, very interesting companies in these areas. Some of them leveraging parametric insurance, for instance, to offer insurance against outages in cloud services. But this is again just the tip of the iceberg. Another area that we are very excited about in insurtech is the reinsurance part. Again, Omry mentioned that earlier. We believe that insurtech is sort of like the piping of insurance industry. It is not it was not sort of like the low-hanging fruit that you had that consumers see and that is being done by companies like Lemonade and Hippo. But this is where there are huge inefficiencies driven by regulation, by a lot of middlemen and a lot of manual processes. And we believe that technologies like AI, like machine learning, and even blockchain can really enable to lower these barriers to create much more efficient markets in reinsurance, increase the liquidity of insurance-linked securities, and so on. And we're very excited about these areas as well. Omry, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think maybe to touch on this point about the embedded fintech, right? Because we keep talking about those classical areas where fintech is happening, whether it's insurance or financial institutions, wealth management, etc., kind of the incumbents of the industry. But we are big believers in this. Mentioned earlier, a little bit like software was eating the world, that famous, Andreessen quote from a few years back. But the idea is, think about any sizable vertical that wants to offer bespoke financial services, and you have sort of this hybrid between an industry and fintech coming together and benefiting from both worlds. So we'll give you an example maybe from our portfolio. We have a company called Payzen. Payzen is operating in the healthcare space, which is obviously another hot space in sort of the investment thesis more broadly. And what Payzen is doing is they picked a very large market like healthcare, and it's serving hospitals on one hand. Those hospitals are having issues with collection, for example. It doesn't matter if it's a copay after insurance, for people that are employed and insured, but there's an issue because a hospital is not a point of sale. A hospital is a point of care, right? And the idea of providing those, on one hand, engagement tools for the hospitals to be able to collect better. On the other hand, to offer the patients of the hospital the ability to get affordable care by allowing 0% APR payment or payment plans for their services. And on the third leg of this tool, bring a capital source that is willing to purchase these assets, right? And that's when it's become fintech, right? So you have Payzen in the middle that is doing underwriting on patients, that is prepaying the hospital, that is offering patients 0% APR plan, and is bringing in a capital source that this capital source is managing to make a decent APR as well, while Payzen is sort of coordinating or quarterbacking this entire ecosystem, right? So you have a vertical fintech service that is leveraging data, as Tomer said earlier, that is doing underwriting, that is having a product flexibility both on the fintech side, but the patient engagement side, and you're sort of benefiting from this huge industry that can be disrupted, leveraging those bespoke services that are fintech services ultimately.
Yeah, and maybe I'd like to add also, finally, and again, another example for embedded fintech that we are very excited about is anything that has to do with real estate or prop tech. We recently invested in a company called EasyKnock. that came up with a pretty innovative solution to unlock, the equity that is locked within, the properties of many consumers, especially these days where liquidity is harder to achieve than ever. And again, it's the same thesis, or say the same themes, but in a different market, where you have basically a market that is suffering from a lot of inefficiencies, and you can have a company that is enabled both by technology but also by an innovative business model, as well as with both on the capital source side as well, basically enabling these assets to the capital markets. And then you create sort of like a win-win-win situation between consumer on the one hand, capital markets on the other, and of course the technology provider in the middle. And again, these are just two examples, and as time goes by, we see more and more examples of companies that are using sort of what we call the embedded fintech in order to disrupt markets that are you wouldn't necessarily think of them as disruptible by fintech.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. We can have a whole summit just about these and exciting topics. I'm actually enjoying so much from these conversations with you guys. This is actually the topic or the next topics that we're gonna talk about also on our next summit. And by the way, on this summit, we have amazing companies of yours like Rewire and others that are already on the summit, and many more like, Personetics, right? Amazing company, doing great. And we couldn't fit all your amazing companies in the summit. That's the thing. So that the purpose of this talk is basically to explain to people who are you and what are you focusing at, and thank you for all the ecosystem and the trend overview, the trends overview, because this is really a global thing, and it's a huge shift in all the the embedded finance and all the segments that you mentioned.
Yeah, Nir, and you touched on the on sort of a couple of our companies, and maybe in relation to the UAE, right? I mean, we are in the Fintech Week for the collaboration. So first, of course, we at Viola are very excited about this agreement. We think it's going to open a lot of opportunities for both sides, and of course, exciting about the prospects. I think from this collaboration opportunities. Look, ultimately, the UAE is, has those characteristics that could be a perfect fit for collaboration with the Israeli fintech industry. It's a country that is open for innovation. It's a country that has a similar size to ours, with a very interesting mix. And I'll talk a couple of examples in a second in terms of its population. And it's also a country, if you kind of fast forward, and we are in the VC in the business of thinking 5, 10, 15 years ahead, not only a financial hub, but can also be a tremendous gateway for the broader Arab world, right? So for an Israeli fintech company today, historically, they were thinking about 3 large markets, right? You can go to the US, you can go to Europe, you can go to APAC, and hopefully this agreement will open up a 4th one in terms of going into the Arab world more broadly. But even the examples you gave in terms of collaboration, we think are super relevant, right? If you think about cross-border banking or cross-border payments, companies like Payoneer that is working already in 150 countries and currencies, Rewire that is going to present, right, that is able to do not only remittance but open a bank account that you can have as an expat, both in your home country, but also in where you're also in the UAE, for example, if you're based there at this point in time. Companies like Personetics that is bringing AI and personalization to financial services. Companies in the asset management like Pagaya, right? They're managing billions of dollars and can be levered into the UAE population. Israel is very big with lending and SMBs, right? In terms of the ability to underwriting and bring some of this technology into that region. InsurTech that we touched on that can be very relevant, and of course all the areas of fraud and RegTech. Companies that we have like Eversea and Plain ID that are each dealing with identity and access management or fraud prevention, etc. And last but not least, of course, the embedded fintech, right? You pick a large industry that is local there, and you bring all these experience and expertise to disrupt it using fintech services. So we look forward, of course, to this types of collaboration and something that we are, again, excited about.
Yeah, and maybe one last thought. I want to emphasize what Omry mentioned about hubs. I think that this is really, a very, deep commonality that we have here amongst, Israel and the UAE. Both are hubs. I believe that, we can learn a lot from each other on sort of like taking, the right ingredient in order to make these hubs even more prominent. Both for sort of like bi-directional access. And as Arish said, we are very excited about the opportunity to collaborate, because we believe that there's a very big opportunity for bi-directional knowledge transfer here.
Great. We will leave your details, by the way, for all the people who are watching us. Where is the best way? I guess the website also, right? The website has all the information and your portfolio.
Absolutely.
For sure. Website, emails, portfolios on the website, and of course, feel free to reach out if there are any questions or any collaboration opportunities.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very, very much. And again, we will probably continue this conversation into more collaborations. And thank you very, very much for taking part of the FinTech Week.
Thanks, Nir, for having us. Thank you.
Thanks, Nir.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.